Hello and welcome to Ticket Manager's All Access interview series, engaging leaders from across the sports marketing spectrum to identify and explore critical issues in the business of sports, entertainment, sponsorship, activation, ticketing, hospitality, and even more. I'm your host, Jim Andrews, and joining me on this episode is Shelley Johnson, Managing Director of Sponsorships for BMO. Shelley, it's great to see you. Welcome to the podcast, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Most of our listeners are probably very familiar with BMO, been an active sponsor in Canada and the US now for many, many years. But just beyond being recognized for all of the different partnerships that you have, BMO has really been, I think it's fair to say, an industry role model in kind of evolving its approach to partnerships to reflect, changes, whether that's internal needs at the bank itself or external conditions happening in the marketplace and in society. And it's been a few years since we've checked in with you all. So, what is the company's current sponsorship strategy, and maybe how has it changed recently?
I'll start by saying our strategy at its core really hasn't changed all that much over time in terms of the fact that we've got a great portfolio of properties that deliver on building BMO's brand through aligning to high visibility assets and bold activations and delivering outcomes to the business. So we work closely with our lines of business to create client experiences and bank our partners. I think a lot of the shift has come from representing the geographical changes that we've made to our footprint for the bank itself, in particular in the US. So with the acquisition of Bank of the West in the last couple of years, we have doubled our US footprint, and we are now a top 10 bank in North America. And with that expansion, we recently added new properties to our portfolio with the naming rights of BMO Stadium, the two teams that play there, the Los Angeles Football Club, LAFC, and Angel City FC. So those are sort of the newest acquisitions in our portfolio, the way that we've been building out in terms of adding our geographies. But I think the other shift strategically has been how we actually show up with our partnerships and how we activate them. And so to boldly grow the good in business and life is our articulation of our purpose. And in those few years, we have then stood up programming that's reflective of the social impact pillars of our purpose, thriving economy, and inclusive society. We now have this programming operationalized across the portfolio. And so I think in terms of how we're actually activating against these programs, we have our opportunity now to tell these stories and amplify work that the team is doing in partnership with our sponsorship properties. So that's one area. The other, in terms of amplification, is the introduction of our brand construct to be able to market our partnerships. We have the most incredible tool in our reoccurring character for BMO. We lovingly refer to him as the BMO guy. He's played by Emmy award-winning actor Lamorne Morris. And he really is the personification of the brand and our employees. And if we think about BMO representing, a fan of all of the partnerships that we have, we're able to then use Lamorne as the BMO guy to represent how BMO shows up in our fandom, whether it's, his rotation of various jerseys or his ability to promote our fan cards, our affinity credit and debit cards in Canada and the US. I think the one other really big benefit of working with a personality like our recurring character is with our athlete partnerships. So we're able to then give our athletes, another personality to play off of. When we put Alphonso Davies with Lamorne, we get this magic that we wouldn't otherwise have that not only makes the content that much more entertaining, but also makes it completely and unmistakably BMO.
All of those additions to the way you've activated, I think, have really resonated with other folks within the industry, and obviously, I'm sure with your customers and the folks you're trying to reach. Is there an example, going back to you mentioned kind of standing up the purpose and really leaning into that? Is there an example of an activation of one of your partnerships that really has done that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that we have articulated our social impact strategy is really unique to each of our property partners. In the US, we lean a lot into promoting a program that we have here at BMO called Zero Barriers to Business. So we are showcasing minority owned businesses in our local footprints, both in our venue and externally with the Chicago Bulls, the Milwaukee Bucks. We've introduced this program with our LA partners, LAFC and ACFC. The other area is in promoting youth access to sport. We have an incredible grassroots soccer program that is national across Canada. We've been able to also extend some of that programming with our soccer partners in LA. So we're able to, I think, be a leader in growing soccer across Canada when we're getting in at that, that introductory level of play.
I want to come back to soccer in just a few minutes, but before we leave California, you mentioned that the partnerships were a major piece of your expansion into California. Are there any kind of measurable results from those partnerships that would indicate that it's had an impact on establishing the BMO name and presence out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I feel like we've had these partnerships both for a very long time at this point, and they've only just launched. And I think if I start at the beginning, one of the jobs that we needed to do with respect to sponsorships was act as a core component of the integrated marketing launch to introduce the BMO brand to a completely new market. And so as we think about all of the levers that we have across marketing, the partnership was really unique in that when our job was to tell people who we are, that we're a bank, teach them how to say our name, having an asset like BMO Stadium, which effectively operates as not only a venue for these incredible partnerships and teams, but also as a big flashy billboard that says, hey, we've arrived in this market. And in terms of what we've seen in the short term, the impact has exceeded our expectations. We have doubled awareness in LA in just the first year. That's awareness of BMO from a brand perspective. For context, we are outpacing our 3-year goals for awareness building in the LA market. And if we look at that compared to other markets in the new footprint where we have the absence of a sponsorship partnership, LA is also outpacing those markets in terms of awareness. So we can see the direct impact that these deals are making. At the property level, too, we've been really, really impressed to see that our partnerships with LAFC and ACFC are already at the industry benchmark for consideration. So that's the level of purchase intent that people would have putting BMO in their consideration set as a result of knowing that we are partners of these teams. So that's been great. And then recently, in this past season, we launched what is now a core asset of our LAFC partnership in the front of jersey sponsorship. We did this in a really big way in partnership with LAFC. They brought out one of their heavy hitters for the launch. Celebrity owner Will Ferrell partnered with us on the launch content for the front of jersey sponsorship. And as you can imagine, we made a big splash as a result of that. Than $20 million in earned media value delivered as a result of the launch. And I think we really set the bar for what it looks like to, win a moment with the league. It was more than a moment. We took over, the national soccer news cycle as a result of this launch. And that's the external impact was incredible. Internally, I had people in my inbox asking me for the Will Ferrell jersey. It was our most ever shared by employees, as well as our most engaged social LinkedIn post from our CEO. And I share that only to say that the impact that these partnerships also have on driving employee pride is compelling, especially in a time of the natural growing pains that come from merging two companies together. And then finally, I want to talk about the community aspect of these partnerships too, because one of the reasons that so value aligned with LAFC and ACFC is how authentically they show up in the LA community, in particular for the Latino and Hispanic segment. ACFC in particular is an exemplar at this. They reinvest 10% of all of their partnerships into the community. And for BMO, what that looks like is a partnership with Girls Play LA. So we're providing soccer access to young women across LA. Overall, these have just been really invaluable additions to our portfolio.
so many good results across all of those different
Yeah.
types of objectives, whether it's awareness, whether it's internal with your employees. So congratulations on that. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the internal stuff, because that's the listeners to this podcast are all sitting in similar seats to you, either on the brand side or on the property side. Can we talk a little bit about how you've got so much activity going on? I mean, you talk about just we've been talking mostly about LA, but you mentioned Chicago, Milwaukee, not to mention north of the border. How is all of that managed in terms of what does the team look like? And how do you then also kind of work with the other departments and areas of business? And I was glad to hear you say that a partnership like LAFC and the involvement of owners like Will Ferrell actually creates that excitement, and maybe that makes it easier when you have to go to them to manage some of the different aspects of these partnerships.
This is probably my favorite topic. I love talking about the team. We are, I think, relative to the size of our portfolio, pretty small. There's about 20 of us that are operate in 4 geographies. So Toronto, Chicago, Montreal, and then we've got a handful of folks out west. Everyone wants to move in with Leah, who operates out of Napa Valley, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can't understand why.
The team is, I think I'm biased, but, is really best in class in terms of the partnership and action that they deliver working together with our properties. And I think one thing that's really unique about our team is we do this basically end to end. We outsource very little to other firms. And I think that actually gives us an edge because we've got these true subject matter experts, both in the sponsorship space as well as in the BMO realm, understanding our business and being able to create those tightly aligned partnerships between our properties and our lines of business with them as that center function. So that's especially important when we're creating client experiences. We do more than 100 of these across our portfolio, bespoke to our segments every year. And then the other area is in ticketing. So our team oversees more than 35,000 tickets across North America. I will take a moment to just pump your tires for a second because we use the Ticket Manager platform to be able to oversee the portfolio. That has been an amazing tool for us as we have 2 individuals that oversee 40 ticket managers across our lines of business. But the platform itself has allowed us to not only track and manage the tickets more effectively, but also give us the insights to make decisions on ticketing allocation, assess demand. So we've got that data-driven approach now to optimizing our ticket mix, which is awesome. And thank you for that partnership.
Well, and I know that the folks at Ticket Manager really value the relationship as well. It's one of the older ones in the company's history, and without tooting anybody's horn too much, I know you folks have done a fantastic job in really taking advantage of the data and all of the things that the Ticket Manager services allow you to do.
That's great to hear.
Shelley, let's go back. We talked about soccer, and BMO has really made a push to be known as, quote, the bank of soccer. Across Canada, you're sponsoring all 3 of the MLS clubs. Tell us a little bit about that. Why the emphasis on soccer? What does that sport in particular bring to the table?
Yeah, soccer, I think, provides so many benefits in terms of there is a level of access to soccer that is really unlike any other sport. Everyone has a personal connection, whether they played growing up or in some way were associated with the game. And I think that nuance allows us to be involved from a sponsorship and brand perspective at every level of play. I mentioned we have a national grassroots soccer program in Canada for developing new talent, and then all the way up to our partnerships across the 3 MLS teams. And in extending that playbook to California and, the expansion of LAFC in our partnership, we are now one of the top handful of partners of the MLS across all brands. Soccer itself is also growing in popularity while other sports, have kind of reached their ceiling. The momentum that we're building towards in having the world's largest soccer event hosted in our backyard in a year and a half. So we're excited about this moment that soccer's having, but really, we've been investing for the last 2 decades at 5 times the rate of our competitors. We've been working to grow the game of soccer. We were a founding partner of TFC in Canada, and BMO is sort of that home of soccer in Canada now. And and across our Canadian portfolio, we are the number one partner in top of mind awareness for the MLS. We are excited to see how soccer continues to take off. We think there's all this untapped potential, and we're going to be there to meet the moment with our amazing foundation of assets across the soccer portfolio.
And you're in such a competitive category too. So to be able to, as we often say, own a sport is, I would imagine, really, really important to
Yeah, absolutely.
brand differentiation, right? Yeah.
Especially in a market like Canada where there are so few players and we have to differentiate a brand that's been around for more than 200 years. I think having that ownership stake is something that is both really important to us and something that we're very proud of.
One of the other things that I think BMO has long been known for and has had a focus on is measuring performance of the partnerships. And you gave some great examples of some of the results that you're getting out in California. But outside of that, in general, are you pleased with the impact you're seeing across your portfolio in terms of whether it's gains in consumer sentiment or actually driving revenue, getting to the bottom of that funnel? How overall are you feeling about the performance of your partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at our two jobs to do, the brand building and business building objectives, when we look at the brand and across all of our key markets, I'm really, really proud of the fact that with our sponsorship properties alone, we are reaching more than 50% of our consumer addressable audience. With respect to our category, we by no means have the deepest pockets, but I really believe in our ability to out activate not just the competitive set, but other brands. If we look within our portfolio beyond just at the market level, and we have really standout performers in Chicago Bulls. We are second in unaided awareness only to Nike, but far and away above the venue sponsor and the jersey patch sponsor. In Milwaukee, we are first ahead of Nike and the other players there. In terms of consideration, so when we look at what's actually going to drive consumers to hopefully start a banking relationship with us, at the market level across those 6 markets, in 5 out of 6 of them, we're outperforming the competitive, again, as a lower spender in our category. And when we look at the Bulls partnership is another great example of impact on consideration, even in the midst of not the greatest team performance, which we know can be a variable on some of these customer sentiment metrics. The Bulls are really Teflon because of the incredible global, powerful brand that they've built. And so we're able to, borrow that affinity from their fans and continue to see growth in that consideration area. And then when we look at the business side, I mentioned we have 100 plus client experiences that we create in partnership with the lines of business, but we also foster relationships across the business and our partners to establish banking relationships that ultimately deliver millions in revenue directly back to BMO. So we're really able to address both of those objectives within our portfolio of soccer and beyond.
There's some pretty incredible results in there when you think about that, and I'm really impressed with the ability to outperform some of the folks that maybe are spending more money, because that goes to speak to not only just the power of the partnerships, the association with these teams and events that people love, but also the power of activation, right? So you've got to do something with those rights and benefits in that association, and not just assume that it's all just going to kind of come to you naturally, right? Just because you're the official partner of the Bulls, the Bucks, whoever it might be. So congratulations, because again, those are some really outstanding results.
Thank you,
Shelley. Before I let you go, we've talked about you've got so much going on. This maybe seems like a silly question, but what's next? I mean, are we going to add to this incredible portfolio, or is there an ability or need to do that? What's looking at?
Yes, Jim, we're busy.
Exactly.
No, I think one of one of our priorities moving forward is to continue to build upon and optimize the incredible portfolio that I have just, spent the last half hour talking about. So that will absolutely happen in terms of just ensuring that we have that right asset mix for brand and business building. But we are looking at what new opportunities could be on the horizon, especially as we continue to build out our new geography in the West. And so I think that is so much of our industry is based on timing. So we are taking our time to figure out what the right partnership looks like, but we're shaking all the trees and we've got a lot of feelers out at this stage. In our current portfolio as well, we are looking at expansion to our product sets as it relates to sponsorship in our consumer products. So I believe by the time this episode airs, we will have launched our new fan cards with LAFC and ACFC in the US, adding to our debit card portfolio with the Bulls, Blackhawks, and Bucks. Currently in our US portfolio, 1 in 3 debit card holders carries a fan card. So we're hoping to expand some of those fan card carriers out to the California market with this launch. And then, from a soccer perspective, we're excited to ride this wave of momentum and excitement around the sport that we're seeing. And we'll be there to hopefully capitalize on those moments.
Yes, 2026 will be here before we know it.
It really will.
Excellent. Well, Shelley, it's been a pleasure talking to you about all of the great things that you've got going on, and wish you nothing but the best as we roll into 2025 here pretty soon. And hopefully, we'll get a chance to talk more in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelley, and thank all of you on behalf of Ticket Manager for listening and watching. And just a reminder to join us for the next episode in the All Access interview series.